Thank you for joining us for this Prairie Tales podcast. Our wagon train to the past is taking us to the Prairie in 1871. We will be stopping for a few nights in Newton, Kansas, which at the time was called the wickedest part of hell. This episode is sponsored by Harvey County Museum and Archives in Newton, Kansas, where Catherine Graves is the director and Chris Schmucka is the archivist. You can visit them at 203 Main in Newton, Kansas, in the old Carnegie Library building, just a block from the infamous Hyde Park area, where many early shootings occurred. A big shout out goes to them for their support of Prairie Tales.
Today we're jumping right into the very beginnings of Newton, Kansas, a real cowtown explosion in the early 1870s.
Yeah, and we're not just rehashing old stories. We've got some fantastic eyewitness accounts, early newspaper reports, stuff from right when it was happening.
Exactly. Forget the myths for a sec. This is about drilling down into how Newton popped up almost out of nowhere as this, major cattle hub.
It's a raw look. Our mission today really is to unpack what made Newton boom so fast as a cow town, using these sources to get a feel for that frontier life. What was it actually like?
Okay, let's set the scene. May 1871. One early report gives us a pretty stark image. Newton apparently had just 2 finished buildings.
Oh!
That's it. And guess what they were selling?
Let me guess. Whiskey.
You got it. Both selling whiskey.
Yeah.
And there were 4 more buildings going up.
Okay.
2 of those were also going to be whiskey shops, plus 2 tents.
Don't tell me.
Also selling whiskey. I mean, it really seems like saloons were priority number 1.
Well, yeah. It really paints a picture, doesn't it? Who's arriving? Cowboys? Drovers? What do they want after months on the trail? It's, telling.
The report even says folks expected it to be a lively little place based on this start.
Lively, right. Code for something else, maybe. But it wasn't just booze for long, was it?
No, thankfully. We hear about a Judge C.S. Bowman. He built one of the first actual houses, like a proper frame building.
A sign of permanence, maybe?
Seems like it. Because the account says after his house went up, others followed really quickly. It became quite a village soon after.
So a shift starts happening.
But imagine being one of those first cowboys riding in. The description is amazing. Grass-covered streets, prairie dogs.
Just raw prairie turning into a town site practically overnight. That contrast is really something. One day it's prairie dogs, the next it's whiskey tents and cowboys.
And speaking of cowboys and sudden changes, there's this wild story. Judge Bowman, with his new little frame shack, he stretched a clothesline to another building.
Okay, domestic touch there.
Right. Well, along comes a cowboy, full gallop at dusk. Doesn't see the line.
Oh, no!
Catches him right under the chin, clotheslined him clean off his horse. Pony keeps going, leaves him hanging there for a second.
Ouch. Bet he wasn't happy.
Happy is not the word. The account says when he got his feedback, the air turned blue with some very colorful language. Then he pulls his gun and just starts firing wildly in all directions.
Whoa. Just because of a clothesline?
Apparently. Yeah. Everyone dives for cover, naturally. It's just pure chaos meeting nascent civilization.
That anecdote, it perfectly shows that clash, doesn't it? The wild, unpredictable frontier bumping right up against the first signs of trying to build something settled.
Here's the kicker, the really amazing part.
Go on.
The account claims that the First Baptist Church, it now stands on that exact spot.
You're kidding.
Nope. And the baptistry is supposedly right where the cowboy hit the ground.
Wow. From a cursing, shooting cowboy to a baptistry. That's quite the symbol of change, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah.
It just shows how fast things were evolving, how different elements were trying to find their place, even amongst all that, wildness.
That juxtaposition is powerful. Wild incident, then a place of community and faith literally built on top of it. Suggests that drive for order was there too, right alongside the chaos.
Okay, so let's move forward just a month. June 1871. You've got another report, this one titled, Such is Newton. And it's right down to why Newton is even there.
The location, right? Always key.
Exactly. And the key is the AT&SF Railroad, the Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe. It reached that specific spot, Section 17, Township 23, Range 1 East, about 74 miles west of Emporia.
Ah, the railroad.
Yeah.
The great decider.
Totally. The report basically says nobody would dreamed of building a town there on that sandy upland soil, far from timber. if the railroad hadn't stopped right there.
Yeah, the railroad wasn't just transport. It dictated location, survival, everything. Building on sandy soil far from trees only makes sense if the train stops there.
And the growth was just incredible. The report says before the railroad was even fully operational there, Newton already had several hundred people.
Several hundred already, wow.
Yeah, and upwards of 50 houses, closely compact. And it wasn't just the whiskey joints anymore. Now there were businesses selling all sorts of wares and merchantables.
So diversification starts happening really fast. People rushing in, setting up shop, anticipating the boom. That railroad promise was powerful.
It must have felt electric.
Yeah.
The report also describes the surroundings. You've got the big cattle trail, obviously. Then Sand Creek, which was apparently barely a dip in the prairie.
Just flat, open land, mostly.
Vast prairie, yeah. A few scattered immigrant houses here and there. And way off, like 10 miles southwest, a patch of timber they called an oasis in the desert. Gives you a sense of isolation.
Definitely. An island of activity popping up in the middle of nowhere. Totally dependent on that iron lifeline, the railroad. Makes you think about the challenges those early folks faced.
And the people themselves. The report calls the population emphatically mixed. People from all over the states, Texas drovers, obviously, with their bony horses grazing around town.
The whole reason for the Cowtown part, right?
Exactly, waiting for sale or shipment. And also Mexican freighters with these old-style carts described as having slight improvements on the old Spanish pattern of 200 years ago.
So a real melting pot from day one. Different languages, different businesses, all converging there because of the cattle and the railroad.
Yeah. It even mentions people seeing familiar faces from Emporia.
So established Kansans were moving west, too, not just folks from far away. Shows that internal movement, maybe investment, flowing into the new boom towns.
Right. It wasn't just happening in a bubble. Now, remember all those whiskey shops from the May report?
Hard to forget. 6 places planned or running already.
Well, by June, this report suggests maybe the wickedness was a bit overstated. Or at least, it wasn't the only thing happening.
Oh. What else is going on?
Get this. A gospel service was held in a half-finished store building, and 90 to 100 people showed up.
90 to 100? In a brand new rough town like that? That's actually quite impressive.
Isn't it? It's a great reminder that even in these wild places, people were trying to build community, establish some normalcy, some structure. It wasn't all gunfights and saloons.
Absolutely. A much more nuanced picture than the stereotype allows. People wanted connection, faith, order, even then.
The report ends pretty positively, calls Newton a live and stirring place with real potential as a railroad town.
Sees the future there.
Yeah, it mentions 2 good wells, water being crucial, obviously, and even signs of coal nearby. Big resources for growth.
So June 71, Newton's already transforming, moving past just being a temporary cowboy stop. It's becoming a place still raw, but with infrastructure, business diversity, community efforts, all thanks to that railroad line.
That rawness was still very real.
Yeah.
And dangerous. Just a couple of weeks later, June 16, 1871, Newton sees its first recorded gunfight within what would become the city limits.
The violence arrives. Or maybe it was always simmering.
It seems likely. This happened at Gregory's Saloon. Involved 2 Texas cowboys. And here's the thing. They were from the same herd, had traveled the Chisholm Trail together.
Friends, or at least companions, turning on each other. That's rough.
Yeah. They got into some argument inside the saloon. The report says the cause was unknown. Maybe drink, maybe trail fatigue, who knows?
Could be anything in that environment. Alcohol, guns, stress, a bad mix.
They took it outside. Both drew their pistols, shots fired. One cowboy, named Snyder, was hit badly. Crippled for life, the account says.
Tragic. And the other?
The other one, Welch, was killed, dropped dead right there in front of the saloon.
Just like that. A dispute ends a life. Brutal. It really underscores how quickly things could escalate.
And what happened next tells you a lot about the times, too.
Yeah.
Welch's burial. Sending him back to Texas wasn't really an option.
No, logistics would be impossible then.
So they buried him just east of High Street, south of First Street, kind of on the edge of things, sloping down towards Slate Creek. This area, that's what became known as Boot Hill.
The classic frontier graveyard name, often for those who died with their boots on.
Makes sense. His grave was marked initially just by a small rock. And the account adds this detail. There were no cut flowers at the funeral.
Wow. That little phrase, no cut flowers, it says so much, doesn't it? Just the starkness, the lack of ceremony, maybe a kind of numbness to death in that environment. Very powerful.
But the story isn't quite over. What about Snyder, the shooter? He was arrested.
Okay, so some form of law enforcement was present.
Sort of. 2 men were tasked with taking him towards Wichita, which was, 28 miles away?
Yeah.
A decent distance.
Right. For trial, presumably.
No. The 2 men came back the next day. They had Snyder's pony, his saddle, his stuff.
Oh, and Snyder
They claimed he tried to escape on the way to Wichita, and they had to shoot him.
tried to escape. Convenient.
And the most telling part, the report states, no further inquiry was ever made regarding the matter.
Wow. Just accepted. That's frontier justice, all right. Swift, final, and not too worried about due process. It really shows how basic, or maybe even absent formal law could be. Survival and immediate control took precedence.
So yeah, Newton's time as a major cowtown was actually pretty short. But man, those early days were intense. These accounts really give you a feel for it. The speed, the chaos, the mix of people, the sudden violence.
Absolutely. That initial period captured in these fragments, it absolutely shaped the town's character, its identity, even long after the cattle trails moved elsewhere. It laid the foundation.
So let's quickly recap what this deep dive showed us about Newton's birth. We saw this incredibly fast, almost frantic growth, all because of the railroad's arrival.
The catalyst.
We saw those saloons dominating the very first structures, catering directly to that incoming cowboy crowd.
Meeting immediate demands.
We saw this really diverse mix, Texans, folks from the States, Mexican freighters, all drawing to this one spot on the prairie.
A real crossroads.
And then the stark contrast. The raw violence of that first gunfight and the sort of summary justice that followed, right alongside these early attempts to build community, like that surprisingly large church service.
Yeah, it's crucial to see how those things weren't separate. The saloons, the church service, the gunfight, they were all part of the same complex, messy process of a town forming under pressure. They all fed into Newton's early character.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on. How did these contradictory elements, the whiskey, the worship, the wide open spaces, the sudden death, how did they all weave together to create the unique fabric of a place like Newton?
What does it tell us about how communities actually form in the West, or maybe anywhere under rapid, unpredictable change? That drive to build, connect, find order, even when everything seems chaotic and dangerous.
It's fascinating to think about how those raw beginnings shaped everything that came after. A lot to consider there.